camera one more time. Sorry, it's been a while. Had things going on. Well, those of you who are watching this part of the video aren't watching live, so it really doesn't matter to you. You really don't notice the big gap, because you weren't waiting for me every single day. So, we're waiting for live viewers, but while we're waiting, I'm gonna fill the time, and I'll be reading from the dictionary again. So, let's grab the dictionary. Let me push this thing back just a little bit. That way I can set this on the edge of the desk. Now, let's see, where did we leave off? I don't quite remember. Okay, I see where we left off. So, we're still in A's. It looks like I'm going to finish this first page in the dictionary finally. So, let's start reading with abaction. Abaction is a noun. It is the stealing of herds and of cattle. The next word is abactor, which is a noun, Latin from avagere, to drive from. In law, one who steals herds of cattle, in distinction from one who steals a head or two. Next word is abaculus, which is a noun. It's the same as abacuscus. Abacuscus, which is up here. Abacuscus in ancient architecture is a tile or square in a mosaic pavement. So abacuscus and abaculus, same word. The next word, and this has a lot of definitions. I think it even goes on to the next page a little bit. Yeah. So the next definition is abacus, which is a noun, Latin abacus, anything flat as a sideboard, a bench, a slate, a table, or board for games. Greek, abax, a counting board. The first definition is among the Romans a cupboard or buffet. The second definition for abacus is an instrument for doing or teaching arithmetic. On this are drawn lines. A counter on the lowest line is one of the next 10. Hold on, that's not reading smoothly for some reason. On this are drawn lines. A counter on the lowest line is 1. On the next, 10. On the third, 100, etc. On the spaces, counters denote half the number of the line above. Other schemes are called by the same name as the calculating frame employed by the Chinese, which consists of wires stretched in a framework with counters sliding on the wires. That's an abacus. The third definition in architecture is a slab atop the capital of a column. It is square in the Tuscan, Doric, and Ionic orders, but its sides are arched inward in the Corinthian and Composite. The name is also given to a concave molding on the capital of the Tuscan pedestal and to the plinth above the boltal in the Tuscan and Doric orders. Abacus major, a trough used for washing ore in mines. Hello. We've got a bunch of spammed comments. It's your birthday? Well, happy birthday, Victoria. Alright, I'm gonna read, let's see, how long? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna read, maybe 2 or 3 more words, and then we're gonna get into the main part of this stream. So the next word is Abaddon, which is a noun. It's Hebrew from abad to perish. The first definition is the destroyer or angel of the bottomless pit in Revelation 9:11, and the second definition is the bottomless pit. The next word is abaft, adverb. I think as means Assyrian. Be by and aften, behind, on or toward the stern or rear of a ship, astern, aft. So, if you wanted to point to something towards the back of the ship, you would say it's over abaft. That's interesting. Abaft. Oh, there's another abaft. Abaft, which is a preposition in nautical usage, behind, back of. Abaft the beam, in that arc of the horizon, which is between a line drawn at right angles with the keel and the point to which the stern is directed. Abaft the beam. That didn't quite make sense, but maybe it made sense to y'all. Love from Hawaii. Hello in Hawaii. I'm going to read one more. Obeisance, which is a noun, which means obeisance. So there's a difference between the two of one letter. One is spelled with an A, one is spelled with a O, and they mean the same thing, but spelled with an A is obsolete, meaning they don't use it that way anymore. All right. Well, that's enough from the dictionary for now. Oh dear, I just noticed that book right there has been getting bent, so I'm gonna stick it under this dictionary to help unbend it. There we go. That should help. Okie dokie. I accidentally misplaced my bottle and couldn't find it in time, so just got myself a cup of water instead. Alrighty. So we're going to be reading Treasure Island again. We're reading chapter 19 of Treasure Island. It's been a little while since I read. That's because I was busy all last week. We had a surprise visit from a relative out of state who stayed with us for the rest of the week, so I didn't have time to do some reading. But now I do. So let's open up the book. And chapter 19, I don't believe is very long. It's a little longer than last chapter, but not very long. I'm gonna grab one more drink of water, and then I'm gonna start. Alrighty. So chapter 19 is the Stockade Garrison, and it resumes Jim's viewpoint. So if you remember, the first portion of the book was told from the perspective of Jim, and then the last couple of chapters were told in the perspective of the Doctor. So now it's switching back to the perspective of Jim. So, as soon as Ben Gunn saw the colors, he came to a halt, stopped me by the arm, and sat down. "Now," said he, "there's your friends, sure enough." "Far more likely it's the mutineers," I answered. That," he cried. "Why, in a place like this, where nobody put in but gentlemen of fortune, Silver would fly the Jolly Roger. You don't make no doubt of that. No, that's your friends. There's been blows, too, and I reckon your friends had the best of it. And here they are ashore in the old stockade that was made years and years ago by Flint. Ah, he was the man to have a headpiece, was Flint. Barring rum, his match were never seen. He was afraid of none, not he. Only Silver. Silver was that genteel." "Well," said I, "that may be so. And so be it. All the more reason that I should hurry on and join my friends." "Nay, mate," returned Ben, "not you. You're a good boy, or I'm mistook. But you're only a boy, all told. Now, Ben Gunn is fly. Rum wouldn't bring me there, where you're going. Not rum wouldn't. till I see you're born gentleman and gets it on his word of honor. And you won't forget my words. A precious sight, that's what you'll say. A precious sight, more confidence. And then nip him. And he pinched me the third time, with the same air of cleverness. And when Ben Gunn is wanted, you know where to find him, Jim. Just where you found him today. And him that comes is to have a white thing in his hand, and he's to come alone. Oh, and you'll say this. Ben Gunn, says you, has reasons of his own. Well, said I believe I understand. You have something to propose, and you wish to see the squire or the doctor, and you're to be found where I found you. Is that all? And when, says you, he added. Why, from about noon observation to about 6 bells. Good, said I. And now may I go? You won't forget? He inquired anxiously. Precious sight and reasons of his own, says you. Reasons of his own, that's the mainstay, as between man and man. Well then, still holding me, I reckon you can go, Jim. And Jim, if you was to see silver, you wouldn't go for to sell Ben Gunn? Wild horses wouldn't draw it from you? No, says you, and if them pirates camp ashore, Jim, what would you say but there'd be widders in the morning? Here he was interrupted by a loud report, and a cannonball came tearing through the trees and pitched in the sand not 100 yards from where we two were talking. The next moment, each of us had taken to his heels in a different direction. For a good hour to come, frequent reports shook the island, and balls kept crashing through the woods. I moved from hiding place to hiding place, always pursued, or so it seemed to me, by these terrifying missiles. But toward the end of the bombardment, though I still durst not venture in the direction of the stockade, where the balls fell oftenest, I had begun, in a manner, to pluck up my heart again, and, after a long detour to the east, crept down among the shoreside trees. The sun had just set. The sea breeze was rustling and tumbling in the woods and ruffling the gray surface of the anchorage. The tide, too, was far out, and great tracts of sand lay uncovered. The air, after the heat of the day, chilled me through. The Hispaniola still lay where she had anchored, but, sure enough, there was the Jolly Roger, the black flag of piracy, flying from her peak. Excuse me. Even as I looked, there came another red flash and another report that sent the echoes clattering, and one more round shot whistled through the air. It was the last of the cannonade. I lay for some time watching the bustle which succeeded the attack. Men were demolishing something with axes on the beach near the stockade. The poor jolly boat, I afterward discovered. Away near the mouth of the river, a great fire was glowing among the trees, and between that point and the ship, one of the gigs kept coming and going. The men, whom I had seen so gloomy, shouted at the oars like children. There was a sound in their voices which suggested rum. At length, I thought I might return toward the stockade. I was pretty far down on the low. I was pretty far down on the low, sandy spit that encloses the anchorage to the east and is joined at half water to Skeleton Island. And now, as I rose to my feet, I saw, some distance further down the spit and rising from among low bushes, an isolated rock, pretty high and peculiarly white in color. It occurred to me that this might be the white rock of which Ben Gunn had spoken, and that some day or other a boat might be wanted, and I should know where to look for one. Then I skirted among the woods until I had regained the rear, or shoreward side of the stockade, and was soon warmly welcomed by the faithful party. I had soon told my story and began to look about me. The log house was made of unsquared trunks of pine, roof, walls, and floor. The latter stood in several places as much as a foot or a foot and a half above the surface of the sand. There was a porch at the door, and under this porch the little spring welled up into an artificial basin of a rather odd kind. No other than a great ship's kettle of iron, with the bottom knocked out, sunk to her bearings, as the captain said, among the sand. Little had been left besides the framework of the house, but in one corner there was a stone slab laid down by way of hearth, and an old rusty iron basket to contain the fire. The slopes of the knoll, and all the inside of the stockade, had been cleared of timber to build the house, and we could see by the stumps what a fine and lofty grove had been destroyed. Most of the soil had been washed away or buried in drift after the removal of the trees, but where the streamlet ran down from the kettle, a thick bed of moss and some ferns and little creeping bushes were still green among the sand. Very close around the stockade, too close for defense, they said, the wood still flourished, high and dense, all of fir on the land side, but toward the sea, containing a large admixture of live oaks. The cold evening breeze of which have spoken whistled through every chink of the rude building and sprinkled the floor with a continual rain of fine sand. There was sand in our eyes, sand in our teeth, sand in our suppers, and sand dancing in the spring at the bottom of the kettle, for all the world like porridge beginning to boil. Our chimney was a square hole in the roof. It was but a little part of the smoke that found its way out, and the rest eddied about the house and kept us coughing and piping the eye. Add to this that Gray, the new man, had his face tied up in a bandage for a cut he had got in breaking away from the mutineers, and that poor old Tom Redruth, still unburied, lay along the wall, stiff and dark, under the Union Jack. If we had been allowed to sit idle, we should have all fallen into the blues. But Captain Smollett was never the man for that. All hands were called up before him, and he divided us into watches. The doctor, Gray, and I for one, the squire, Hunter, and Joyce upon the other. Tired as we all were, 2 were sent out for firewood, 2 more were set to dig a grave for Redruth. The doctor was named cook, I was put sentry at the door, and the captain himself went from one to another, keeping up our spirits and lending a hand wherever wanted. From time to time, the doctor came to the door for a little air and to rest his eyes, which were almost smoked out of his head, and whenever he did so, he had a word for me. "That man Smollett," he said once, "is a better man than I am, and when I say that, it means a deal, Jim." Another time he came and was silent for a while. Then he put his head on one side and looked at me. "Is this Ben Gunn a man?" he asked. "I do not know, sir," said I. "I am not very sure whether he's a sane one." "If there's any doubt about the matter, he is," returned the doctor. "A man who has been 3 years biting his nails on a desert island, Jim, can't expect to appear as sane as you or me. It doesn't lie in human nature." "Was it cheese you said he had a fancy for?" "Yes, sir, cheese," I answered. "Well, Jim," says he, "just see the good that comes of being dainty in your food. You've seen my snuff-box, haven't you? And you never saw me take snuff, the reason being that in my snuff-box I carry a piece of Parmesan cheese, a cheese made in Italy and very nutritious. Well, that's for Ben Gunn." Before supper was eaten, we buried old Tom in the sand and stood round him for a while, bareheaded in the breeze. A good deal of firewood had been got in, but not enough for the captain's fancy, and he shook his head over it and told us we must get back to this tomorrow, rather livelier. Then, when we had eaten our pork and each had a good stiff glass of brandy grog, the 3 chiefs got together to discuss our prospects. It appears they were at their wits' end what to do, the stores being so low that we must have been starved into surrender long before help came. But our best hope, it was decided, was to kill off the buccaneers until they either hauled down their flag or ran away with the Hispaniola. From 19, they were already reduced to 15. 2 others were wounded, and one, at least, the man shot beside the gun, severely wounded, if not dead. Every time we had a crack at them, we were to take it, saving our own lives with the extremest care. And, besides that, we had 2 able allies, rum and the climate. As for the first, though we were about half a mile away, we could hear them roaring and singing late into the night. As for the second, the doctor staked his wig that, camped where they were in the marsh and unprovided with remedies, the half of them would be on their backs before a week. "So," he added, "if we are not all shot down first, they'll be glad to be packing in the schooner. It's always a ship, and they can get to buccaneering again, I suppose." "First ship that I ever lost," said Captain Smollett. "I was dead tired, as you may fancy, and when I got to sleep, after a great deal of tossing, I slept like a log of wood." The rest had long been up and had already breakfasted and increased the pile of firewood by about half as much again when I was awakened by the sound of voices. "Flag of truce!" I heard someone say, and then, immediately after, with a cry of surprise, "Silver himself!" And at that, I jumped, and, rubbing my eyes, ran to a loophole in the wall. And that is the end of chapter 19. A love from Texas. Hello to Texas. Thank you for your dramatic reading. I did enjoy it. I hadn't read Treasure Island in quite a long time. I honestly believe you belong in theater. Or perhaps narration. Much love from Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, thank you for that. And hello in North Carolina. Yeah. I'm acting in a play in our church. Around Christmas time, we were just practicing that earlier today. I've been told quite a lot that I should get into, like, acting or drama or something like that, theater. You know, I've thought about it, but I'm not exactly sure if it's quite for me. Maybe. I'm not sure. But I do enjoy putting drama into the reading because it makes it more interesting, I think. It's always fun to imagine the tone that people might use. Alright, well, that was chapter 19, and hopefully I will be back tomorrow around the same time to read chapter 20, provided I'm not busy. I had been busy the last couple days. I hadn't recorded, but I'm back at it, I think. We'll see. Hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. I would appreciate that. Well, now I've got a couple other things I need to take care of before I actually go to bed. So, y'all have a good night. God bless.